Senator Braun, Senator Ricketts.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner O'Malley, for being here today.
Good to see you again, Senator.
Good seeing you. So according to the Social Security Administration, in 2024, roughly 68 million Americans per month will receive a Social Security benefit, which is a total of almost $1.5 trillion over the course of the year. Over 350,000 Nebraskans receive Social Security benefits, with a large majority of these individuals being retired. Many Americans do not know they need to plan for their benefits to be lower than expected due to federal taxes. Social Security began being taxed in 1984, and at that time, only about 10% of the beneficiaries were being taxed. Now, over 40% of the beneficiaries are being taxed at the federal level. As governor of Nebraska, I recognize that all Social Security benefits should be completely tax-free, and that's why I worked hard to pass a historic law that would phase out the state income tax on Social Security benefits over a period of time. Due to the success of this Nebraska law, I introduced the Social Security Tax Cut Act once I entered office here in the United States Senate. Under this plan, a typical senior would save about $800 a year on taxes, and this would create real relief for our seniors in a time of rising costs and out-of-control inflation. By passing this bill, we can take the first step in boosting the retirement income of millions of seniors in Nebraska and across this country. Moving on to the issues here, you put forward a path to improve customer service, so thank you very much for providing the data. I actually expect a governor to want to look at data, so I appreciate that very much, Mr. Commissioner. And noted what Senator Blumenthal talked about, the 38-minute on-hold time. When I took over as governor of Nebraska in our economic assistance line, that hold time was nearly 24 minutes, so not quite as high, but still not good customer service. And I know you've got also with regard to the time delay on that. I know you're relatively new into the job. Can you talk a little bit about what's your plan to be able to address some of these issues with regard to customer service, like the hold time of 38 minutes? And do you have a goal specifically you're shooting for to be able to hit with regard to that hold time and some of the other goals? And just kind of what are the steps you're going to take to be able to get there?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let me begin by saying that the most important thing that we could do and the most important thing that we could address is this yawning gap between the ever-rising beneficiaries. That 68 million number that you cited was also what I cited during my confirmation just 4 months ago. But now it's 71 million. So that blue number here continues to go up, but the staffing is declining now to a 27-year low. Last year we had a spike, but as you might imagine, if one of your employees when you were governor was answering a call after somebody had been on hold for an hour, 39 minutes is the average, they're coming off of that call hot. So our attrition rate in the teleservice centers is about 24%. So many of the people that we hired leave, and it's not, a lot of the questions are not simple questions to answer, so they require some training. But this is what we're doing specifically on the call times. We have a number of leading actions, as you know, from a performance management sort of governor yourself. There are leading actions that deflect people from the 800 number to address their concerns in more timely, legitimate ways. So everything we can do to drive up the numbers of people that are getting their services online or applying online for a Social Security card rather than calling the 800 number, those are examples of deflection. Examples of call resolution are things that allow us to answer that call the first time instead of making a person call back. Or perhaps sometimes process or policy changes that allow the call taker to take an attestation after we've already identified that they are who they are and what their mother's maiden name is and those sorts of things, so that we can resolve whether they're calling for a tax form or something else, so we can resolve that on the first call. There are a host of actions that many of them I've experienced and learned of firsthand when I was out there sitting side by side with people all over the country. And each of those has an impact on diverting people from the call. I'll give you another one. Lawyers, claim advocates, would call the 800 number again, and this is kind of a twofer, this is both deflection and resolution, would call to make sure that their entry of appearance, their 1696 form, was accepted by Social Security. And to be sure, they would fax it in, mail it in several times, because there was no way for them to check on their own other than to send lots of repeat notices, which is wasteful when you have to do the same one in the same case, or they would call the 800 number. But because the 800 number was so overwhelmed, somebody, well-intentioned, said those lawyers can only check on status of 3 cases. So we've done 2 things. One is to make it possible for them online to see whether we've accepted their 1696 entry of appearance form. The second is that if they do happen to call the 800 number, their secretaries are not limited to checking that status on 3 cases, but they can ask 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so they're not calling back as soon as they hang up and being on hold again. Those are some of the things we're doing. We've struggled with an underperforming system, new telephone system that we went into during the pandemic and the closure, you know, the shutdown. And that system has not yet performed as it was promised. And we really do struggle with that. But we also struggle with the attrition rate in our teleservice centers and trying to, you know, continue to provide a level of customer service with less than 1%. You know, Allstate operates on 22% as a percentage of its outlays, 22% overhead. Excuse me, I think it's 12%. Liberty, 12%. We are less than 1%, less than 1%. And it shows. In 2018, we were 1.2%, and the customer service was better. So there's a lot of bunt hit singles that we're doing on process improvement and performance management, but it won't make up for that yawning gap. The good news is Congress could address that, and it won't affect the deficit because people have already paid for their customer service in the trust fund. And here's the other good news. If we were allowed to operate at 1.2%, not only would it not add to the deficit, but I asked the actuary, how far would it advance the so-called depletion date of 2034? The answer to that is 30 days. So this is kind of a self-inflicted wound. People already paid for their customer service. They already paid for their benefits. There was nothing discretionary on their part about it. It was mandatory. And we could get back to that very quickly.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. And those are all steps that I think demonstrate that you've got the right idea about how we address and providing better customer service for our seniors. I would also just add in there, and we've talked about this, Lean Six Sigma or another process improvement methodology to look at your processes as well. But you're spot on by looking at the deflection and how we can, again, in my business career and in my career as governor, when you can get people to use the online services, it's actually a win-win because once they get used to it, they enjoy it better, it's better customer satisfaction, and it helps you out providing service to people on the 800 number.
I would love for you to come up to a security stat meeting.
Okay, great.
You would enjoy it. It's, you know, what you did as governor, what I did as governor, and the senior executive service has really responded to us. It's every 2 weeks, not just looking at the lagging indicators, but at the leading actions that drive us. And there's a lot of Six Sigma principles in there as well.
All right, great. We'll follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ricketts. Commissioner, I want to start on the question of funding. I think the